So here we are. The theme for the month is change your life with mindfulness. So we've been talking about it all month long, and it's a very powerful practice. It is life-changing. Mindfulness is life-changing, and that is why we want to practice it, because we want to change our lives. And you know, this time of the year, of course, it is the perfect time to talk about change, isn't it, really? We changed our clocks last week, right? We changed our clocks. Officially, yesterday, we changed from winter to spring. It was early this year. It was the 19th in the Pacific Coast, whatever. But it was early. And today is Palm Sunday, which, you know, in the Western calendar, anyway, it's Palm Sunday, in the Western Christian calendar. And Palm Sunday is a time of immense change in the life of the man Jesus. It was tremendous change in the world timeline as the story played out. And it was great change, or it can be great change in our lives if we allow it to, if we allow it to have its way with us. Great change if we allow it. You know, we are on daylight saving time, right? We just changed from Pacific Standard to daylight saving. We left Pacific Standard behind last week, and we moved our clocks 1 hour ahead, and we call it daylight saving time. Isn't that lovely? It's that annual practice of moving the clock ahead, not getting enough sleep, being grouchy the next morning, and calling it daylight saving time. I know that there's an old urban legend about a Native American who had said only the government could believe cutting a foot off of a blanket at the top and sewing it to the bottom of the blanket could give you a longer blanket. Now, it's never been proven who said it or if anybody really said it, but I kind of like the sentiment of it. I really do. Okay, so we change time. The seasons change at this time of the year. I love that too. We're moving out of the winter into the spring. It means a lot if you live in the Northeast. It means a lot if you live in the North. Not so much in you know, California, or at least not so much in San Diego. I remember when I first moved here, one of the things I said I couldn't get used to was I couldn't get used to the fact that there were no change of seasons. And one of the native Californians told me, oh, no, we have change of seasons in San Diego. We have early summer, summer, late summer, and next summer. So it's like, okay. I get it, and I get it now. I've been living here long enough. I do get it. Sweaters in the winter, oh my God. Yeah. So we did celebrate spring this weekend, and it did come a little early. You know, spring sprung. Spring sprung, did you feel it? Or did you feel it this weekend? It just like, boing. It did that thing. And so these are the kinds of things we're talking about. Natural changes, man-made changes, you know. I was researching that whole spring thing and the hour forward and all that stuff in researching for this talk, and I found the website, the NISTF1 website. Does anybody know about that one? It's the atomic clock in Boulder, Colorado. So I found out that this is the earliest spring has sprung since 1896, and it has to do with leap year. And then I started getting all involved with that. You know how information goes? Okay, so here's just briefly. Leap year are years that are divisible, right, by 4. They're leap years. But if the year is also divisible by 100, no leap day is added to that year. Did you know that? I did not know that either. But if the day is divisible by 400 in addition to 4, then they put the leap day back in. Okay, this is crazy. I know, it's very, very weird. So there was no leap day in 1700 or 1800 or the year 1900, but there was a leap day in the year 2000 because it was divisible by both 100 and 400. See how that goes? It's weird. Never mind, don't even worry about it. These are the kinds of things that keep me up at night. It's about change. It is about change. You know, the thing is, change happens. Whether it is man-made, like the changing of the hours of the clock, or whether it is natural, like the phases of the moon and the changing of the seasons, change happens. And we have to embrace change. And that's the whole basis for the philosophy of the science of mind and spirit is change your thinking, change your life, yes? So in the practical application of science of mind, Ernest Holmes said this, There are going to be changes in our lives from hour to hour, from day to day, and we cannot escape them. It is the nature of the universe. Let us accept change, make the most of it, and capitalize on it. The action of the law never changes, but the direction of the action is up to us. Life can become a glorious adventure, increasingly filled with more of every good thing we love as we gradually or suddenly come to change the pattern of our thinking so it embraces more of those good things. This is the basis of our philosophy. Change your thinking, change your life. And you know, this is the time of change. This is springtime. I love springtime. Springtime is one of my favorite seasons. I get really weepy, though. I don't know. It's like really strange. I love it. But it brings up such powerful emotions in me. It is a powerful time of the year to talk about change and growth and standing in our own personal power. And for me, the Palm Sunday story is a part of that. You know, Palm Sunday begins what in traditional Christianity is called Holy Week, right? and what we know in New Thought for sure is that every week is Holy Week. Every week is Holy Week. What we know for sure is every day is Holy Day. And what we know for sure is that wherever we are standing on holy ground, right? Because everything is sacred. Everything is sacred. If spirit is all there is, if God is all there is, our core concept one, if God is all there is, and everything is an outpicturing of it, then everything is spirit. Everything is holy. Wherever we are, is holy ground. You know, we may not be serious, but we're sacred, right? And that's just the way it is. And so here is what we believe at the beginning, the first line of what we believe, which is the declaration of principles of the science of mind and spirit, says we believe in God, a living spirit almighty, one indestructible, absolute, self-existent cause. This one manifests itself in and through all creation, but it is not absorbed by its creation. The manifest universe is the body of God. It is the logical and necessary outcome of the infinite self-knowingness of spirit. So the very ground that we walk upon is the body of God, that logical and natural outpicturing. So everywhere we go, we are on holy ground. So we don't single out this one week as Holy Week. But in springtime, it reminds us just to go deeper still, to look at what it means to be in a time of change, in a time of growth, in a time of newness and renewal. It is the time to plan. It is the time to plant. It is the time to plant those powerful, powerful seeds of intention that we will then harvest in the fall. You know, the traditional Holy Week, I love it. The traditional Holy Week, which begins with Palm Sunday and ends with Easter, is actually a microcosm of the entire calendar year, if you think about it, all in this one week. It begins with Palm Sunday and the waving of those palm fronds, which actually is a symbol of a fall festival. And back in that time period, in that area of the world, there is a fall festival of Sukkot. And it's about building those huts. It's about the harvest. It's about calling in your good, calling in your grain, where people waved palm fronds. So this Palm Sunday ritual is really recalling that. It's recalling the autumn festival. Then we enter into the dark of winter with the crucifixion, with the death of the sun. And it also harkens back to the pagan ritual of winter solstice, when, according to their ritual, the sun is at its lowest point. The days are shortest, the nights are longest, and that period of time was called the death of the sun, S-U-N, not S-O-N. And the ritual goes on to say, the sun lays in its grave for 3 days before it rises again. And that was to indicate the darkest days of winter. And then it turns around, and the days start getting longer, and the sun comes up. So that was the winter of those days, of those ancient times. After a while, as the days get longer, spring arrives, right? You have the rebirth, you have Easter. where the newness returns. Things are reborn. Behold, I make all things new. Plants sprout out through the snow. I used to love that part when I was little and lived in New York. I loved seeing the crocus come up through the snow. Anybody else? I loved that. It was just fabulous. Just fabulous. But it's the time when we plant new things. We want to see something new come into being, right? I mean, somebody threw a question out last week, if your life next year is exactly the way it is this year and there are no changes, how happy would you be? Right? We're always looking to make new goals. We are always looking to plant new seeds. We are always looking to manifest new things in our lives. And then comes summer, the fulfillment, where the things that we planted come into bloom. They come into fullness. They come into ripeness. So between Palm Sunday and the autumn, right, to the dark of winter, to the death of the light, back to the rebirth of spring, Easter, the guarantee of new life then comes to full fruition in summer, the blossoming and the fullness and the ripeness. So we have this whole entire calendar year as a microcosm in Holy Week. And it presents a very, very powerful time for us. We are here to do that work. We are here to plant those seeds. Do you really, really want the same old, same old? Do you want just, it's like, we used to have a saying in PTA, if you always did what you always do, you always get what you always got. Okay, so, that's not the way we were meant to live. Do you want your life to be better, to be different, to be greater, to be grander, to be fuller, to be happier? Then you have to change what you're planting. Yes, you have to change what you're planting. So now, this time, springtime, this is the time to make those powerful intentions, to set them, to plant them. It's springtime. It is a powerful reminder for us to do the work of planning, to do the work of planting, to do the work of nourishing our most predominant thoughts. Because they are the ones that are going to manifest. They're the ones that are going to outpicture. Ernest Holmes in Love and Law said, since our word creates always, it stands to reason that we have got to be very careful in sowing the seed. You cannot contradict nature and get an affirmative result. You cannot mix up thought, negative and positive, and get a steady stream of affirmative consequences. Makes sense, yes? It makes sense. We can't mix it all up, not positive and negative, and get positive. Now is the time for change. Now is the time to awaken to what it is you're thinking. We are the people of change. The science of mind and spirit, this philosophy that we teach and follow and practice, it is a philosophy of change. We must be awake and alive and aware of what it is that we are thinking. Here we are in the Lenten season, and you're asked, during the Lenten season, what are you going to give up for Lent? What are you going to give up? And for years when I was a child, I gave up broccoli. It worked. Whatever. But we think about it. Well, what is it we want to, And so what New Thought did, and I think it was Charles Fillmore, if I'm not mistaken, said, we're going to reinvent this whole Lenten season for new thought for people like us. And so he said, let's take the word Lent and let's say, let's eliminate negative thinking. I like that. I think that's wonderful, but it still has a little negative thing because it's telling you what not to do. So then there was someone else who came along and said, Lent, let's entertain new thoughts. I like that even better. Let's entertain new thoughts. So here we are, kind of in the Lenten season, and I know I was fasting from complaining this year. That was what I gave up for Lent. I gave up complaining. I was just never so silent in my whole life. I know it's a little thing for some, but I've been fasting from complaining, not speaking to the condition, not complaining, not being negative. And it's interesting. It's been a really long Lenten season, I can tell you that, first of all. And the other thing it did for me was it made it really, really very glaringly obvious when someone did it. when someone else did it. It became really obvious to me when I say, hey, good morning, lovely day, and somebody would go, and I'd be like, what the hell, Made it really obvious how much negative talk we expose ourselves to, And so I think that, you've ever heard in this teaching where we, whenever we try to change something, whenever we do affirmations for something, we try to change something in our lives, we say, oh, everything unlike that came up, and sort of like you stumble. But I don't really think it's true. I think what happens is when we're affirming something for our lives, it's not that everything unlike that comes out. It's just that our consciousness is so aware of it. We are so much more aware of it. So it's the behavior that I'm eliminating, so I just hear it all around me. It was like, oh my God, everybody had a complaint. Everybody was being negative. It's really interesting. So during this Lenten season, if you were complaining to me and I yelled back at you, there's not a word of truth in it, now you know why. Now you know why I was doing that, because I was trying to stay on track. This was my practice. This was my practice. So as we continue down this road together, as we continue down here, we have to continue to advance. We have to keep taking those next steps. You can't just linger on the surface of this faith tradition that we're practicing. There are people that have been in New Thought for 20 years, and it's been 1 year 20 times over. Because they just don't go any deeper into the philosophy. We have to go deeper. We have to really mine it for all it's worth, We have to take this thing in and really practice it and really challenge ourselves and really go to those places that New Thought is asking us to go to. We can't just linger at the surface anymore and consider that enough of a practice, because you'll only get out of it what you put into it, They always said that. They always said spiritual centers are a lot like swimming pools. All the noise comes from the shallow end. Oh. So it's up to us now to go deeper. We are in this spiritual practice to go deeper. We have to dive into this philosophy. We shouldn't be content anymore to just practice it superficially. We have to fling ourselves, heart and soul, into what we teach, into what we practice, into what we know. Ernest Holmes said this. He said, stay with the one and never deviate from it. Never leave it for a moment. Nothing else can equal this attitude. To desert the truth in our hour of need is to prove we do not know the truth. When things look their worst, that is the supreme moment to demonstrate to ourselves that there are no obstructions in the operation of truth. When things look the worst is the best time to do this work. It is the most satisfying time. The person who can throw himself with complete abandon into the limitless sea of receptivity, cutting loose from all apparent moorings, is the one who will always receive the greatest reward. This is the work we're here to do. The deep, transformational work of change. This is what we've been called to do. This is why we're sitting in this room this morning. This is why we're practicing this spiritual philosophy. We are here to do the deep, transformational work of change. We're done with the superficial stuff. We're going to dive deep into this teaching and mine it for all it's worth. Change our consciousness, change our thinking, and change our lives. Now is the time for change. Now is the time for change. We are the people. It is up to us. It is time to plan. It is time to plant. It is time to nurture so that we can harvest our good together. Are you with me? Yes. You ready to plan? Yes. You ready to plant? Yes. Absolutely. And we will harvest our best lives ever. Thank you so much.